Welcome to another episode of the Wood Couture podcast, recording live here at the Andaz Hotel in New Delhi. Today we have a star architect, as I define it, a firm and a gentleman that have gained more than 75 national and international awards, the one and only Manish Gulati. Welcome.
Thank you.
So here we are, it's crunch time, and when I read about you, about your childhood, you are dealing with a lot of creative things. Tell me a bit more about that.
As a kid, I was always an artist who was trapped with the mind of an engineer. So there was always a struggle. And while we come from a background where things are told that either you become a doctor or an engineer, my father was very supportive with the art side of it. And in fact, I have to give him credit for me becoming an artist as a kid. And I used to sort of sculpt and make my models. I used to make landscape models when I was a kid. So I had my own interest of playing with the art and then at the same time working out the machines together. So I had these both duality, which I was always struggling with. And architecture was a very natural choice of a profession in that sense for me.
It's funny because I interviewed some of your colleagues here in the last few days, and they said at that time architecture was not a safe profession. Either engineering or lawyer or doctor, but architecture not a safe profession. So you're not a conventional person.
Definitely not. I've been a maverick as a kid. I've had my own path, and I decided way back in school when I was not even in college that I would want to be an architect. And funnily so, that if I did not get through the architecture college, I had no other choice. So the other choice was to either just become an artist. And my dad supported that. He said, if you don't become an architect, if you don't get into the architecture school, I'm okay if you become an artist or a commercial artist.
No, Indian art are very expensive. Yeah, some of the guys that got galleries around the world,
Yes.
sell for top dollar. So hey, you were right at that time, and you are right now. In your early part of your career, I read something. Being Italian, loving football, you worked on the FIFA headquarters in Switzerland.
Yes.
I know you guys like cricket, but
Yes.
tell me about the experience.
I was on a students exchange program from my college at the Etihad University. So after the first semester, we all have to get a job. And for that internship, I was working at Schwarz and Schwarz in Zurich. They were working on the FIFA office. In fact, a very interesting story. I was asked in the interview whether I know a certain software, ArchiCAD, but I needed the job desperately because as a student, you need the job to travel, and I wanted to travel all over Europe. So I flipped through it. I said, yes, I know the software very well. The first day, they made me sit down on that FIFA thing. We're starting on the FIFA model. We need the model in a week's time. And it's the only excuse I could say that, oh, the software's in German. I don't know how to interpret German. Give me about a week's time and I'll interpret the software from German to English. And that 1 week, I learned the software and I started making the model.
Wow. Yes. That's in German.
Yeah, that's the story of FIFA office.
Oh, that's a good story. So along your journey, have you found a mentor, somebody you look up to, or when you had something you need to ask a question?
It's interesting. I mean, I've always had different kinds of mentors. My first mentor was my dad, of course, in terms of how he guided me through, gave me encouragement and gave me, whatever you want to do in terms of the arts. There was no limitation to that. Then, of course, my professors, a lot of the master architects. Mentors are not just the architects for me. They were artists, they were poets, scientists. I read a lot. So every time I would pick up a quality of somebody or something, and I would always try to see that how I can incorporate that and make the design better. Because the bottom line is it was always design that I wanted to make a perfect. I'm a perfectionist. I keep doing the job till the time I'm happy and satisfied with it. So it could be a design. I also deal with movie making and editing. Till the product is perfect, I keep working on it. So for me, mentors are pick up a quality from a mentor and then incorporate that overall.
Okay, so you went into your own business and you set up Mofa.
Hmm.
Where does the name come from?
Okay, when I completed my architecture college, I did not want to continue architecture. I wanted to dabble with something more dynamic. I got into the event industry. I got into set designing and story writing, all sorts of things because architecture was too slow in those days. For 3 years, I dabbled with that. And once I wanted to come back to architecture, I didn't want a firm which was doing the same kind of work. And we wanted to do something that deals with art, technology, and sustainability together. So the name manifestation of fluid architecture came in. And fluid to us was not form based fluidity. Fluid was the ideas, where it can come from the background of science, from engineering, from finance, management, sustainability, and art.
It's interesting, and then now I've spoken to you, and I can see your artistic side because in your bios you always say there is no single written philosophy of MOF, only open-ended work.
Yes.
So is that how you approach every job?
I'm always in search. I'm always in search for a language. And I think the journey for me after 20 years has just started, where I've started formulating a certain new systems or a new language for architecture. For me, what was taught in colleges, what has been practiced till now, was just beginning steps to learn. And there's always a quest. It's always work in progress. Every project, we've done more than 170 projects in last more than 20 years, but every project has been distinct and unique, a step to learn something new for the future projects.
Of the 170 projects, I know I'm sure they're all unique, like they're all different. But is there one or two that say, I'm really proud of that? It's kind of for whatever reason doesn't have to be the best design.
Yeah. No, there were projects which taught us a lot. There were projects which started in a different manner. So NIFT campus at Kangra, it's a fashion institute on top of the hills, very sustainable project. And we used the local architecture inspiration from there. There were about hundreds of trees on the site. We didn't cut a single tree. We built around the trees, and it's one of the most sustainable projects we've ever built. It took a lot of time, but on a hilltop in Kangra McLeodganj, it's the house of Dalai Lama, and very close to that, we built this institute. It's beautiful. The other side of it is National Institute of Water Sports in Goa, which is a seafront, which is an absolute opposite of what NIF campus is. It's a fluid form. We were in quest of looking for a new language, parametricism in those days. And it's an expression of a sea wave. The entire building is a dynamic fluid motion. So these are the two distinct projects that one talks about, but there are 50 more, which each one has its own distinct quality. We've done a resort in Manali, which is like an anthill, or we're doing residences which are completely off the site, factory built homes in India. So to cut down the carbon footprint, every project has some research, some agenda behind it. Either it's art, technology, or it's sustainability, or all three together.
It's interesting because um, you basically describe and you approach and your kind of res- responsible design. And but I was shocked to learn that there are some of your colleagues or the industry that they are saying, in the last 5 years, client they mention the word sustainability or there, but actually, are people really convinced about it? So what's your experience in general on that?
We call it greenwashing. A lot of clients are greenwashing the buildings, where you get the certification, you have the tick marks done, but in reality, building is contextual always. Every architecture is very contextual. When I'm building in the hills versus the sea or the desert or the rocks, it has to imbibe the sustainability of that context. You cannot have a cookie cutter approach to every project, which is a very wide approach, which is done within the country with a lot of people that let's take up this formula and apply the same formula in 5 different locations. Obviously, it fails. And somehow there's a myth that to make a sustainable building, it becomes expensive. But that's the corporatization of the entire system. I don't believe in that. I think one can do at ground level stuff, local materials. And there's a huge myth about the local materials itself. People think building in stone is sustainable. but there have been hills that have been wiped out just for the use of making a stone building. So sometimes it's important to see what is sustainable, what is the lowest carbon footprint. I mean, I could do a steel building in Delhi, which is completely done in the factory. It's far more sustainable than doing a building that's made with earth materials. It's just how you look at the carbon footprint of a building.
Wow. So you really an advocate for eco design, let's call it.
Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic.
There is no choice. I mean, with climate change and with the way we are going, I don't think as architects we have a choice anymore. No, we have to be responsible.
It's become a way of life.
It has become a way of life.
Considering your 1 week crash course in software, and let me bring up a subject of today, the young generation going crazy about it, and but some people feeling threatened. Artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it, and what's your views on that?
I'm a great advocate of artificial intelligence. I use it as a third collaborator in the design process. So a lot of times I think that, it's an assimilation of a lot of ideas. What is artificial intelligence? It has pretty much been developed by a lot of work that has been done by the humanity over the centuries. It has learned from there. And if it can assimilate all the ideas together and gives you a crux of it and takes you further from there, you've got a third partner who can work with you technically. So we use a lot of AI. We use a lot of simulating models. So we are a very tech-oriented company.
Nice.
We do a lot of simulations, real-time simulations for buildings, whether it is climate, people, behavioral patterns. And with the aid of AI now, the whole process has become much faster. So we are able to get more efficient results with lesser amount of sort of impact on the overall design.
There are people that claims that although they are pushing the boundaries, when they try to get AI into emotions, but do you think the AI can take over the creative mindset of a human?
It's too early to say something like that. I mean, I think since childhood we've been watching these science fiction movies where AI does take over, Terminator comes in, and now there's been a prequel of Terminator to another one. I think these are all, yes, myth, fantasy turns into reality over a period of time. Who knows? Might not. But by the end of the day, humanity has always been good and bad, right? It's good versus evil. AI is pretty much learning us from us in that whole sense. It's developing its own neural network in terms of understanding and things. As long as human beings have the touch to art, to the skill, to what we do with hand, and we keep a balance of the intuitive mind and the logical mind, I don't think AI has an edge over us there. Because what the human intuition can do, I don't think machine can do very soon. I don't know about the future though, but as I see it in my lifetime, I don't think machine has an edge in intuitively over humans. So that's where even when we use AI, we always insist that you use your hand, you use the skill. You sculpt, you paint, you draw, and then you use the technology to kind of support it together. So play it together. Don't let it only on the machine.
Are there architects out there that still sketching? They do any sketching?
Oh, I do. We all
Pencil
do.
and paper?
A pencil and paper, but it's now gone into an iPad and a stylus. But we still sketch, and that sketch sometimes goes into an AI model and it becomes a building straight away. So yeah, we're dabbling with both art and technology together.
Or do you start every job to get inspiration with sketching, or how do you start a job? No.
Most of the time sketching, sometimes modeling, sometimes playing with food. You sit on a dining table, you're playing with food, you're making something, you take a napkin, sometimes the inspirations come from everywhere and anywhere. I mean, I don't think there's a thumb rule to an inspiration. I could be sitting with you and I could get inspired for my next project through a conversation. So there is no thumb rule to that.
Italian Art Deco. And I like one of your sentences. I read an interview and he had a beautiful sentence. And he said, architecture is going back to its basics.
Yes.
Why is that?
I think at the base foundation level, when we do a building, it has to appeal to the human sensitivity. No matter how large a project you build, whether you do a house or a stadium, we deal with both the scales. The touch, feel, the energy of the building is extremely important for the people who inhabit it. So every time you have to bring it back and you have to relook sometimes inside. And the Hindu philosophy is saying, look inwards. rather than looking outwards. And looking inwards means you contemplate, you ask yourself every time this question: am I on the right path? So you keep questioning yourself with every design, coming back to the basics that am I on the right path or not with this one? I may keep going ahead, I may learn, but that question whether I'm on the right path should always be asked, and I always keep asking that.
That's interesting. Is that looking inside the box.
Yeah.
Because uh, and questioning, ourselves. If you are in the right track on that, and but let me put it on another perspective. Some of the colleagues that we have interviewed, they're saying, nowadays there is a visual congestion, Pinterest, Instagram, and everything. So the profession don't focus anymore, don't look anymore inside. They go and look everywhere rather than in that. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, you brought up the box, looking inside the box. For me, a box has never existed. I have never lived in boxes. For me, there is a cloud. It's always a very fuzzy cloud of ideas, of design. And I exist in that cloud where one has to always look inside and come to that one pinpoint for every design philosophy.
Wow.
And, you know, we don't look at Pinterest. Maybe we do. Maybe we look at hundreds of images. Today, you're bombarded with images, even if you like it or you don't like it.
Mhm.
But those images go into your subconscious, and somewhere or the other, something comes out. But getting in touch with your subconscious is the important factor here. Not taking an image directly into the design, but let all those millions of images which have already gone into your subconscious to bring out that one essence of all those images into one idea. And that is designed to be, to continuously look inside.
It's interesting because reading about all these star quality interior architects, and everybody repeat two words. They say this is the mantra of architecture: forms follow functionality. And then I look back and say, man, I've been in many hotels, but functionality sometimes, is what do you think are the challenges in designing hotels in these modern times?
Specifically, hotels
Hotels, so let's say
or any building,
public
as such,
spaces.
public spaces. Most of the people forget public spaces are used by people. It's not a figment of imagination of one architect's mind. It is a lot of times the architects become the one and only. So it's the megalomania of saying that this is my idea, the architect's ego, and I think everybody will follow that living pattern. That's where most of the architects go wrong in understanding a public building. Patterns and trends keep changing. Humanity is evolving every day. I mean, you look at the Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the patterns of living are totally different from my generation or your generation. Unless you understand that living pattern of everybody, you cannot design a public building. Architecture has to respond continuously to the living patterns of people. You take a hotel, you take an institutional building, we do both. And in all these projects, it's very important to understand how people are responding and to be able to predict how the future generation is going to change that pattern. So, if there was a time when people used to, like us, we were more with hand and sketching and working manually, the newer generation is using iPads and phones most of the times. It's the screen, it's the digital screen. So the language has to change. The design has to change. Functionality is important.
The your colleagues of the Triple ID, they said, and quoting Vivek Gupta, inside the fraternity or inside a conference, we all know each other. The moment we step out, nobody knows us. Fashion designer, everybody know who they are.
Yeah.
But do you believe that considering 75 awards, multiple years experience, in excess of 170 projects, that a building with your name on it, if it sells, will sell to a premium?
Uh,
With a premium, more expensive?
in terms of my,
Yeah, having your signature into that, because their track record,
I don't know. I mean, I don't It's very important to firstly get out of your fraternity, get out of that bubble of designers, going out to people who a lot of times don't understand design. India, people have started understanding design only a couple of decades ago in terms of when I'm talking about the mass or the importance of an architect or architecture as such. So it's important to get in touch with reality out there. We a lot of times remain in our own bubble and call ourselves premium and star architects. I don't believe in the term star architect somehow. I don't. I think what is important is what your client wants, what they need, and how you kind of fulfill that. Well, if you can charge a premium, that's your good business sense. Bottom line, that's like any business. It's not because you have formed yourself an image of a star architect, you go out with a premium. There are projects where you charge because you want to do that project, you charge minimal or a lowest, and there are projects which you charge premium. So I don't
Not
think there's a
just in
mantra to
terms
it.
of fees, is they were saying that when people develop a residential, they tend to use the name of the interior architect on the collateral to say, this has been designed by the architect, and they said, I mean, it is time. The market seems now to be sympathetic with the fact that if a building has been designed by an architect with experience, he command a bigger
A
price,
bigger price.
selling price for the real estate.
Yes, to a certain extent, that's true. Also, because of the fact that if you are of a certain stature and with a certain experience, you bring that experience of doing a better building. So, when you do a better building where you are able to think beyond the brief of a developer, when you're able to give more in that design, anybody can put together a housing project, any architect can. But only few architects go beyond the brief and give more to the project than what is just given by the developer. If you can think beyond what a developer can think, that's the quality of an architect. And that's when you charge a premium. And the developer charges a premium, and that's where your name gets put in. So only a few of us go beyond that brief. I think that's important.
That is,
I
but that's why
don't know if I made sense.
but that's why he commands a premium, because
Yes,
if you,
absolutely.
it makes sense. So for new people coming and join your company, young guys, graduates, what is the best advice you can give them?
Never be contained in a box, ever. Learn your skills. Don't work hard, work smart. Absolutely. And be inspired all the time. I think you have to be continuously inspired and be passionate about this profession. This profession demands a lot from you. And if you're not passionate about it, you can't survive in it. And that's the bottom line of it.
Now it's probably a challenging question, because it's it requires some thinking. It cannot be blah 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 like that. But if you had to say, in the next 3 to 4 years, this is the trend I see in architecture coming up, what would you say the top two will be?
I think what I feel with the way things are going, adaptability to the existing building. I think we're building too much. Sometimes we're building so much that buildings are getting unused. There are empty buildings all over. And with the kind of sustainability that one talks about, there's just too much of pressure on this planet of overbuilding. Construction industry produces the maximum waste. So the future that I see is adapting a lot of non-used buildings into newer functions. So building less. I'm saying that as an architect very clearly. Build less. And second is using as much local craft with technology as possible. Craft is dying everywhere. You have corporatized everything and you've standardized everything, that your local craftsman all over the world is struggling to do anything. You take Italy, you take India, it's the same situation. Craftsmen are dying. So it's high time where technology and craft come together and we produce buildings which are crafted buildings if we do. So whatever we build, we do. That's the trend I'm looking at. Technology, craftsmanship, sustainability. It's as simple as that.
It's interesting because particularly in a country like India, there you go, so much diversity, climate changes all over the country, and gastronomy, culture, cuisine. You go religions, philosophy. Nobody talks about Vastu.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, I mean, there is two populations, the Asian on the side of the water, they go the Feng Shui, and you guys are the Vastu. And nobody talks about it, which is What do you think about Vastu?
It's a science. It's a science which is a very old science. A lot of it has been misinterpreted over the times. So, Vastu has become almost like this unrecognized medicine which is used by a lot of people to scare other people. So, a lot of Vastu consultants today are scaring clients with the fact that, oh, this may happen or that may happen. So, there is a thin line between Vastu as a science and Vastu as a superstition. I believe in the science side of it, which is very simple as four elements of earth, wind, water, fire. You balance all that together in the right corners of your house or whatever you're building. You followed most of your Vastu principles, which are the traditional Vastu principles. And traditionally, Vastu is all about that.
I was saying to some of your colleagues, I spent my 14 years as a consultant studying these two things, feng shui or philosophy, feng shui and Vastu. In particular on Vastu, I was trying to find, in the context of hospitality, because two buildings next to each other, with two brand hotels in primarily, with two international brands, but one design according to the Vastu principle and the other normal. And I had that deep conviction. I don't have the evidence because I've not found this. I have this deep conviction that this hotel will have a better financial performance simply because, when people walk into a place that is in balance, you feel good. The feel good factor. Define as you want. And I not found it, but this is my deep conviction. That's why I'm saying nobody is actually, and you guys have, I think, is a way of life. It's fantastic.
I think if you go deep down, climate affects how we live. If it's too hot, you can't perform very well. It affects your overall being, your anger issues, so there is a lot of subtext to what climate and weather does to you. Vastu is all about that. If you've not balanced those energies, if you've got the sun coming into your building, you've got high energy costs going in for air conditioning, you are going to bleed. The business is going to bleed. I don't think it's rocket science. It's very basic. I don't like to complicate things, but if you look at Vastu principles with respect to the climate, it's simple science converted into business. And if you balance all of it together, you are going to be spending less. You'll be bleeding less. You'll make more money, definitely.
Very true. So, for the people that don't know, because the people watching us are from all over the world, why are India designers incredible?
Why Indian designers are incredible.
Yes.
We've got the age-old intuition, craftsmanship imbibed into us. We have Indian education system has been based on storytelling. It's not a very formal education system. And you have to understand when a craftsman's son learns craft from his father or his grandfather, there is a lot of intuition and that wisdom that goes into it. And that age-old wisdom is something that we live by. Come on, Indian civilization is more than 5,000, 7,000 years old. And somewhere or the other, it's got imbibed into our DNA when it comes to it. So we rely a lot on our intuition. And as long as Indians rely on intuition a lot and balance it out with logic, it's a very successful mantra. I've tried it on myself. Every time I just go mechanical about things, it's never a good solution. When I go deep down, and it could be the most ridiculous idea, but I feel in my gut that it's right, and I balance it out with the right technology or the right logics, it works magically. I think that's where the incredibility comes from.
I tell you, that's a beautiful explanation. I like what you said, is, in our Korean education, a lot of wisdom.
Yes.
And for me, wisdom also equal to madness. The way of doing things.
Exactly.
That person is given respect because of the age. I like that.
You can feel it, that what your decision you're taking may not be right. It's a very simple test. As a kid, I always used to think the words, there was a spelling bee contest. One would always feel that the spelling seems incorrect. So there's an intuition there. And it would invariably work that way. So I still trust my intuition in a lot of cases.
It's fantastic. I like it. So final question. If we take a very giant white canvas and put it on top of the Burj Khalifa so everybody can see it, what message would you write on it?
Save this earth as much as you can, unless it's too late.
So time is the best currency, basically.
Time is the best currency. We are losing time every day. Save this planet.
Amazing. Manish, thank you very much.
Thank
A
you.
pleasure.